Throughout the pandemic, COVID has been used as a crutch, especially by people like Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews. Now, COVID was used by Andrews to spotlight his charismatic, warm, authoritarian personality. And COVID has amazingly brought out the caring side of Andrews. Reveling in the glory and hubris and arrogance is Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews' own self-proclaimed view of his belief as Victoria's saviour. So it must have come as a shock earlier this week when in the Queen's Birthday Honours list, when one of Andrews' apostles, Brett Sutton, failed to be recognised by Her Majesty, especially when other chief health officers like Brendan Murphy, New South Wales Chief Health Officer Dr. Kerry Chant, and Queensland's former Chief Health Officer Dr. Jeanette Young were commended for their efforts during the pandemic. But Andrew's golden boy wasn't. Now, at 96, none of us can doubt Queen Elizabeth's astuteness. She remains as wily as ever, which remains an indictment on Sutton and a slap in the face to Andrews. So we need to ask, why was Sutton snubbed by the Queen? Well, the answer may lie with the clouds of corruption that hang over the Victorian government. It's an undeniable fact that simply can't be ignored. And it's one that obviously hasn't been lost on the Queen. Now, regardless of what you think of COVID and its legitimacy, acknowledging a Victorian government official with a Queen's Birthday honour when it's mired in controversy just wouldn't sit right with Her Majesty. But such is Andrew's arrogance, he views it differently. This week, he brushed off questions about Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton after he failed to make the Queen's Birthday Honours list, while his interstate counterparts did. There were 992 Australians recognised on the list, including 669 in the General Division of the Order of Australia, and awards for meritorious, distinguished and conspicuous service. On Monday, Andrews dismissed questions about whether Sutton had been nominated, saying that it wasn't a matter for him to decide on. Andrews also said, honours are awarded by others. I think that Professor Sutton has done an amazing job, and knowing him very well, I don't think he would be troubled by that. Further adding, Mr. Andrews said, Sutton wouldn't be concerned as he was more focused on ensuring the safety of Victorians. He's far more focused, as we all are, on getting the job done, not necessarily on gongs. But again, that's not a matter for me. I don't determine who gets honoured. Well, surely Andrews can't be taken seriously, especially when nearly every other of Sutton's counterparts received that nomination. The snub has surely wounded Andrews and Sutton. One could almost expect Andrews and Sutton had gone to the bank with a Queen's Birthday Honours list nomination. It once again shows just what poor judges Sutton and Andrews are showing themselves to be. And while Sutton now is on leave for a month, he'll have a lot of time to lament on the snub. And we must assume it's a slap in the face that must be hurting. Sutton's oversized ego has always been on display. Now, despite distancing himself from the Queen's Birthday Honours list, Mr. Andrews was also quick to remove any criticism of the awards that may have been inferred. He went on to say, I don't want to be critical of who has and hasn't been honoured. Again, when I say to you, this is not something that we're involved in that means that I'm not commenting either way. It's a matter for others, he said. And if you want to know who's been recognised and why, then you'll need to speak to the relevant committee out of Canberra. Sutton's New South Wales counterpart, Kerry Chant, was recognised for her distinguished service to the people of New South Wales through public health administration, governance and medicine, as she helped navigate the state through the pandemic. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese congratulated the recipients of the awards, specifically those who worked on the country's COVID-19 response. The 2022 honours list included 37 recipients of awards in Military Division of the Order of Australia, 201 meritorious awards, and 85 distinguished and conspicuous awards. And yet, there was no mention of Brett Sutton. Maybe next year, Brett. But then again, maybe not.